everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you guys so much for joining as we start unpacking and uncovering site search and the experience that search has inside digital experience. But all right, so as we start unpacking why most businesses fail on-site search and how you can nail it, this is going to be a really important topic, and my special guest with me is Paul Nashawati. He's the Vice President of Marketing with Hawksearch, and Paul's a veteran at creating technology and business digital transformation solutions. He brings a depth of experience in technology, marketing, business strategy, and general management while delivering real-world solutions that exceed customer experiences. Paul leverages his business and technical skills to understand customers and partners as well as impact their organizations while delivering on these key success metrics. Paul and I have known each other for quite a while, and we have a very similar focus on delivering successful customer experiences. And so what we want to do now is kind of shift and say, within the realm of digital experience, within the realm of customer experience, where does search play? And search has been a very interesting technology as it's evolved over the years. And it's a lot different than where I started from when we started delivering lists of links and find, here's where you can find these keywords in a list of or a page text. Search has become very important on how we deliver a successful digital experience to our end users, our customers, our partners, and our employees. In fact, search really plays and has an impact in a wide variety of arenas.
Yeah, thank you very much, Greg. Thank you for that awesome introduction. I appreciate you inviting me on this webinar today. As you said, this is Paul Nashawati from Hawksearch. And what we see is that to echo a lot of those comments, searches have really evolved over time. What we see is 16% of e-commerce sites don't support searches by product name or model numbers, which is kind of problematic, right? When you look at it from a search perspective. But you can see some of these other stats here. 70% of users you want to use specific words, right? And they can't find what they're looking for. So if they can't find it, they can't buy it, right? So to speak, right? And then 60% of searches don't support symbols or searches or abbreviations, and that's a challenge when it comes to when you're looking at different types of search requirements.
That's right, and this is where I think that the misnomer plays, is that we look at like a Google or an Amazon, and we start seeing the results coming up, but then we go to a site search, and a lot of companies, they kind of fall flat, and I think that there's a great opportunity that we can take a look at, especially as we start looking at where it came from and where it's heading to. So, back in the day, this is where search started. It was an information retrieval technology. So basically, you'll be able to find index pages based on these web crawlers that would come in, index your page, and then you can go into a search area and then type in the string of words, and it would bring up every page that has that particular string of words. Now, that was okay way back when the internet first started. But things have evolved so much.
Yeah, they've evolved dramatically in the search world, right? Because, retention times for people looking at your site is key, right? So if somebody's on your site, whether they're looking for content, material, they want to read more about a specific topic, they need to have a way to get that information, right? And it has to be an intelligent way of providing that information. So traditional search or the search of old is no longer applicable, right? So when you look at some of the reasons to focus on search, you look at, some of these stats here. We're looking at 3 times the greater conversion for people that browse the site versus navigation alone, right? So they're looking for additional content and they're looking for information, but that's part of the recommendations that come from the search engine that give you that information, right? And, not to talk about all these bullets, but when you're looking at researching information, 84% of Americans, I like this one because it basically says it's, whether they're looking for purchasing or they're looking for content in their site, 84% of Americans just make an impulse to click on something, right? So they click on something, they want to see it, right? And then when they look at that, without an intelligent search to provide that, they wouldn't have that result.
Right, yeah, absolutely, and we're going to get into talking about what the expectations of those end users are, and I think it's a hilarious metric there of saying that us Americans, we love to just go ahead and click on whatever shiny object that might be on our screen, But the problem is that if we do that and we're not fulfilled with what our expectations are, we're going to fall flat.
And you abandon the site.
And we abandon the site,
right.
and you've lost the customer. So it's so important to have that focus on search for your own sites. In fact, it was so important that companies like these commercialized it. They actually saw such a value in what search could deliver that they poured a lot of money into their products in order to provide that search experience, to develop this digital experience into something very finite around search that they're able to make and these are some of the biggest companies around. I think Bezos just passed $200 billion in net worth from Amazon. But that goes to show you that's where he started. He focused on delivering the customer to a product as quickly as possible and being able to have ancillary products around that core product to increase your order values. And those are just some of the things that search can do. And in fact, search has evolved from even more than that.
Yeah, and it really has. I mean, when you look at some of the history that we were talking about earlier, back in the early 90s, you have a search box, and it was just basically a list of, as you were saying, a list of information. And that's just evolved, but the algorithms have been becoming more and more complex. Right. So when you start looking at different analyzers and different ways of doing artificial intelligence and machine learning, that really ties into that whole evolution of where it started with a search box to an Amazon effect, which, as you can kind of see on the right side of this slide, where, a lot of customers, a lot of people that will go to Amazon or something will go down to recommendations. So really recommendations and machine learning and artificial intelligence is the next generation of search.
Absolutely. And one thing I really want to point out here is that sometimes we associate search with e-commerce. And while those two they pair very, very well together, there is a huge element that we need to talk about is the contextual search. So searching for words or searching for different pages or solutions. Sometimes it's e-commerce, sometimes it's transactional, sometimes it's page-based. But this search has evolved over time from this commercialization to involve e-commerce, but I think the same mechanisms can be used in contextual search.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things that we have, one of our customer case studies is University of Missouri, right? And they basically do a lot of content searches through their education portal and such. And that content site is heavily leveraging something like Hawksearch to do something similar to this, where you're getting the recommendations for the content that you search for. So you're getting the relevant results around what you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's so important. We're gonna unpack what those users expect here in just a second.
So yeah, and when we look at these, different ways of recommendations, there's so many different strategies to look at. So search is not just search, right? And if you kind of think about search in the days, when you think of a person with a flashlight looking under rocks, right, and they're trying to find stuff, right? And that's one element of search. But when you look at all of the different strategies that come along with search recommendations, this gives you this kind of complexity that, if you're not adopting a complex search environment or infrastructure in your environment that goes across your ecosystem, then you're really leaving out a lot of data that could be leveraged for your business.
Yeah, I like how you said that searching across your ecosystem, because when we start looking at digital experience platforms that are able to connect to both front and back office applications, and even beyond those applications of your own domain, search becomes really important in how to be able to direct readers, users, and end users to specific applications based on what their goals, what they want to actually go talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. And and when it comes to when you're looking at the different goals that businesses are trying to achieve, they can mix and match different strategies here, right? So if you look at the different strategies across it, and you're looking at it from a site search perspective, it's so much more than just your traditional search, right? And you can see recommendations as seen here can be considered as that next generation of search 2.0, right? Which is the strategies that drive those business results. Right, and unlike products like like Azure Search or Elastic or Lucene, they're great products, but they're basic, right? They offer basic search functionality where you need more of a robust way of delivering these types of functionality to your business.
Yeah, and the reason we need to modernize search technologies and applications is really because of the expectations that are coming from the end user. We have been very well trained by Google and Amazon to have very high expectations in what's delivered to us when we ask questions. And what happens is that instead of showing, here's your possible results, we expect to have, here is your answer, or here is your solution. This is what you need from that question. And so it's now coming to a point where we don't want to show a million results. We want to show the most probable answer to the solution or the question that you're asking. And so I have in here links are lame, because it really starts looking like that, because when you get into search, it's not just a list of links that you click on and hunt and peck and try and figure out the answer to your question. It's bringing that answer to the forefront. And to the point where we're looking at modernizing this technology, your site search really should be on par with an internet search. So your site search should be on par with a Google or a Bing or Yahoo or what have you, being able to have a lot of different motions in there that will allow you to present this technology, or present the content in a way that's consumable and also provides that value. And believe me when I say that your end users can totally tell if your search technology is an afterthought. If you just delivered a very basic infrastructure or basic technology to them. Now, I'm not saying they will drop off your site because of that, but you will not impress them, and it will not provide you with that competitive advantage, that delightful experience that your end users are looking for. And even more so than the contextual and the e-commerce, a lot of what your end users are looking for is being able to be presented with rich media results. And what I mean by rich media is definitely text, but it's also video, and it's images, and it's audio, and it's all these different ways that we present our message and we present our content, and our capital C word, content being able to get out there and draw people in is the same thing that our search technology really needs to be able to understand, so we can bring these kind of things for them.
Yeah, and Greg, you hit the second bullet that you hit, search should not be an afterthought. That's incredibly important, right? Because when you're looking at your architecture of your business solution, whatever you're trying to drive forward, and that delighting your customer's experience, that customer journey, is to provide the customer what the results they're looking for at the right time, at the right place. If they're not getting it, they're going to walk, they're going to leave, right? Or maybe they'll get the information, but they only get part of the story. Right? This way, including search upfront in your architecture, you can properly index the material and the content of your site. You can provide the recommendations. You can provide the analysis and the tools that you need, all for that site to deliver the results that the customer journey is looking for.
That's in customer journey. You're absolutely right. We're going to unpack customer journey and how that plays with search in just a second. But think of search this way: is that your search should guide your end user to complete their goal. And that's what it's there for. If you're not able to do that, or if it gets clunky or too complex, then your user, they might bail on the site, or they might have a very disjointed experience that they're not going to come back.
Yeah, well said.
And so as we start unpacking that journey, we need to understand who our end users are, the behaviors of these end users. And so we start looking at, and I think there's about 3 different ways that your end users will engage in your site. You have your browsers, which they'll click on contextual links, image links, and they'll just kind of flow through. These are the guys that will pretty much adhere to your customer journey the way that you've mapped that out. So you've mapped your journey of your site. You know how you want your users to flow through that site in order to convert. And those are your browsers. And then you've got your navigationers, and the folks that use navigation, and the navigation is going to be your top nav or left navigations, and they're just going to click around, thinking that they're just going to hop around for pages in more of a taxonomy journey than a mapped out customer journey. And then you have your searchers, and these guys are going to see that search box at the top of the site, and they're going to type in what they want to find. And they are bound and determined to figure out where that is and accomplish the goal that they set to accomplish. Now, the problem that we're going to get into is that they are now entering your customer journey at various points along that map. and how do we as marketers and how do we as site owners, how do we allow them to continue down that path and convert down that path so that we can help them and nurture them along that journey. And that's where it gets challenging, because our new modern customers, these new modern or empowered consumers, or however you want to refer to them as, is that they are more focused on accomplishing their goal than they are about contacting you or following a mapped journey. And so their goal is to accomplish their research or buy a product or engage in a service or know more about what they're talking about than your sales reps will. And this is where that search experience comes into play and the expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the context of navigation, search, or browsing, there's different tools that your search engine or your search infrastructure should provide, right? When you have those analyzers that provide the results, you need to have filters that go through that align to the navigation bar so you can provide the right results. You also need facets that when somebody's searching, they can really get down and isolate what they're looking for by the specific facets that are associated with that search that they entered in. Absolutely. So yeah, and then when we look at the other challenge on the right side of this slide, you can see at the bottom part, there's also the challenge of what one person enters. Like Greg, if I'm looking for something, say I'm looking for something that's maybe a foot long, right? How many ways can you identify a foot? Right?
Well, a foot, 12 inches.
Yeah, 12 IN.
Yeah, a third of a yard.
All sorts of different ways, right? Sure. So you need something to normalize, cleanse, and enrich that data in order to provide that, right? And that's where I think, it's not necessarily a table stake to a search engine, but it's an enhancement to a site, right? To make sure that what a customer is looking for, if 5 people come to the site and they have 5 different ways for searching for the same result, it's normalized and produces the same result.
Right, because if it doesn't, then you take your user down a completely disparate path, and it'll confuse the user to a point that they don't think they're part of that site anymore, and they're going to leave.
That's right. Or they'll get the wrong results, which is terrible. Right?
Absolutely. And a couple more points about the way that our users go about this is that they're starting to align SEO to customer data. Now, what I mean by that is I think Marion Sweeney from SEMrush actually said a really great quote. It said that UX is the new SEO. And I really believe that, because I think what happens is that as we continue to gather the customer data and we understand how customers are engaging with our business, both on our site and in different applications, that the way this engagement's happening and tracking that engagement is really how we used to track SEO and keyword values and those kinds of things. But now we've internalized that into a UX, a user experience type of thing, where we grab that customer data. And just, Paul, exactly what you're saying is that when we know that these words are synonyms, or these words mean this one result, we can get that from that customer data, and it makes those search results so much more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you're looking at the persona and you're doing personalization based on the persona, that's where you're getting that clear message to your audience.
Right, and that's where we get those analytics that provide those insights. Right. And other things that we can actually gain out from business owners, what we can gain from this customer data is now we can start utilizing it to populate additional content on our site, or change wording, change messaging based on some of the stuff that we're seeing from the insights from those analytics.
Yeah, and and that really should be in the control of the marketer. Right? The marketer really should see that and see what's happening and make those adjustments on that site themselves, right?
Absolutely. So search is not just a one-way, let the end user go take control. We need to receive that feedback. We need to receive that customer data back. We need to analyze that and glean these insights in order to figure out really what types of questions, what kinds of pain points our end users have, so that we can get out front of that and then modify our messaging and make sure that we are now targeting that kind of content to these different personas and users.
Absolutely.
And what we're really doing is by doing that, we're aligning an experience. We're aligning this digital experience to search. And what I mean by that is that our digital experience has a lot of these different elements in it. You've heard a lot of them with personalization and personas and contextually aware and guide to goal completion. These are things that we want to do naturally in customer journey or in a mapped website, this is how we want to present ourselves, both on our domain and then beyond in a distributed fashion as well. But this is also what the expectations of search should be. This is the experience that your end user should have with search. They should have a much more personalized results being driven to them, something that they can be analyzed and that they understand, the technology understands who they are, so that these results are much more tailored, they're much more customized. That could be based on persona or history, or there are a lot of different data elements. But we need to be able to pivot and to raise these results, the ones that we think that this particular user is looking for, raise that to the top so they can find it out. And then what we were talking about before with contextually awareness, I mean, there might be 1,000 different ways that we all mean the same thing, but how does technology understand that? And I think this is where we start getting into machine learning and AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when we look at, how we work together as a product offering, we look at, the two products together, and I don't want to speak specifically around a product per se, it's not a pitch by any means, but when you have technologies that work well together, they produce those results that you're looking for, right? And part of it is, to get that comprehensive reporting, that funnel analysis, to really understand this information, to make the dynamic adjustments you need to make on the fly, so you can do things like boost and bury as you need to on specific items, for example. You can really customize that content to your persona that you're talking to, just like what you were talking about on the last slide. And, these real-time adjustments are not, historically you would have to go through an IT department and put a ticket in and have all this stuff and have a developer maybe code some stuff. That's all well and good for some offerings, but it really, if you're looking to be dynamic and fluid in your marketing adjustments, so you want to adjust your customer's persona information, you really have to have that ability to do that from the business unit itself. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's so important from from delivering on these experiences, that we need to be agile as business owners, as site owners, as marketers, as IT. We need to be agile enough to adjust to what's happening currently in the market. As we've seen over the past 7 months, we've had to adjust quite extensively, and those who are agile enough, those who are innovative enough, those are the ones who have already invested in digital experience or digital transformation, are the ones that have that forethought to do exactly that, to be able to pivot and make different results happen based on the needs of the business and the needs of the persona.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also don't want to, and just be clear here, I also don't want to discount the importance of a developer into your ecosystem, right? Because
we love developers.
Of course we do, right? And we want to make sure that we have the ability, that we have the integrated results across the systems, across the ecosystem. But that integration also provides a holistic view on how content should be performing. Right, so they're looking at these federated sources of content and then producing it back, and that some of that back-end systems have to be, basically coded to make that work.
Right, and we're not saying that there's no code needed by any stretch of the imagination, but what it does is that once that development has been done, we don't have to always dip back into that pool and have activity done in order for us as non-technical to get out and get the results that we're looking for, or make the changes that we think are needed. I always refer to it like this: is that if it takes me enough time in an email to write what I want done, why can't I just get it done myself?
Exactly, and that's what a lot of businesses want to do, right? And that was one of the things that we dynamically adjusted with our offering, is to make sure that we listen to customers, and customers want to make those changes themselves without those change orders going into effect, right? So they want to be able to use the product the way it was designed to be used, but also adjust their business needs. So it's great. I mean, this is exactly why this relationship and this better together scenario really works well.
Absolutely, and not to get too technical here, but as you look at Sitefinity and as you look at Hawksearch, a lot of times, we look at connecting applications together through what we consider open APIs, and without getting too technical, APIs have a lot of depth to them. And sometimes you get all the data, sometimes they gate data, sometimes you don't get everything you want, sometimes they're only one way. But with this relationship, it's almost a near native integration, to a point where they feed off of each other and they serve each other extremely well. So, and that's one of the reasons we're so happy to have Hawksearch as a partner, is because we have such a strong connection into the two different applications.
Yeah, and you use the word connection, and it's funny because we have the term connector, and we have an integrated connector that does the heavy lift, and so these two products work well together. So we have a built connector that allows us to work well together.
Perfect.
And then when we look at the different context of search, this slide is kind of busy, but what I wanted to do on this slide was basically provide just a thought process of what elements you may be maybe not even considering, right? You maybe not thinking about with regards to search or your content or your web experience, right? Your digital experience has so much more to offer, but sometimes you just don't know where to get the information.
Yeah, and I like this slide. I mean, there's a lot of information on here, but I like it because a lot of times we go through our daily experience online, especially in our consumer world, and we just expect things to happen. And we forget that there's a lot of technology behind those things that make our expectations or deliver on our expectations. And this is kind of a good little map to look at to say, oh, yeah, these are definitely technologies and methodologies in order to enhance that experience and deliver on a lot of those expectations.
Right, and keep in mind that this is applied to not only, large sites, but also small sites, right? So it can be across the board, right? You have a smaller site, all of these principles can be applied, right? It's not bound to these large enterprises, but although this is where it fits as well, but it definitely can be applied to a smaller site. So you get that robust functionality on a smaller site as well.
Right. End users really have very little forgiveness if you have a small site or a large site. Their expectations are always going to be where they're at. And their expectations, as we know, are continuously growing. They're continuously getting more advanced. They're modernizing. And so, Paul, you're exactly right. If you are a small site or if you think you're a small business and don't need to focus on search, your end users think very differently.
Right.
Your end users expect that to be a very rich experience, that Search 2.0, to be able to interact with your site and engage with your company through search and also through the rest of the experience that you have built.
It's funny, I was reading a study recently. It talked about how 80% of executives and CEOs believe that they're providing their customers with an enhanced or excellent customer digital experiences, when if you surveyed the customer side of it, only 8% agreed. So it's just really funny that, that there's just a huge disconnect between what the business believes and what the customer experience is.
That is funny. Several years ago, we talked about that with digital transformation. How we thought that the CEOs or the leaders of the company thought that their companies were very digitally advanced, but their customers didn't think so.
Right.
So that very disparate stat there. But I think there's a lot of truth in that. Right. And I think we see it all over the place. And when companies don't prioritize on-site search, I think that miss is felt. The scary thing is that it's not felt internally to the company. It's felt by the customers, and especially the customers that you've lost, and you don't get that feedback from.
Right. Absolutely. No question. And when we look at this slide, it's the right side's pretty technical, and it shows the entire platform, but it's important to understand that, search is not just search, right? And when you look at the different federated sources that make up the data consumption, whether you have your systems of engagement on the top, on your systems of record at the bottom of this right-hand side, you basically have different sources of data that need to be taken into consideration when you're delivering those results, right? And when you're looking at, the platform here, the search platform, there's a merchandising element in this slide here on the left side, and then on the right side you have the reporting element. And that allows you to have a pulse of real-time activity of what's happening within that data, within that content, right? So you know what's performing well and how it should be performing. Based on persona, a personalized result, and you have machine learning providing that information from all your different systems, your federated environments. So you're collecting that information, whether it's a CMS, an e-commerce site, a PAM, an ERP, whatever it may be. You have all this information that's fed up, filtered and fasted appropriately across the site, and then you have some advanced functionality that allows you to do things like, SKU analyzer or SKU selector, right, and different product selection. But one thing that we definitely want to talk about is that ability to normalize data, right? Because we touched on it a little bit earlier about using these analyzers to make sure you normalize and cleanse and enrich the results to produce the results that the customer is looking for, right? And that's incredibly important because, again, it's all about the customer's journey and about what the customer is expecting to see out of it.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about the way that Hawksearch has gone about this, with having these systems of record, or as we sometimes call data silos or databases, different applications that are running in the back office, is that when we start using a use case like portals, for example, portals are there to allow you to get to different applications quickly, right? So it's kind of like a hub, if you will, to allow you to engage with these different applications. And the more modern portals that are out there keep you on your content management system, but bring in that back office information, either the data or you're able to interact or engage with that data, and it sends those interactions back to the database.
That's right.
The interesting thing that Paul and I were talking about just a little bit before we started this webinar was that Hawksearch is able to go bring results back from those back office applications. So when you're doing a site search, and that's really powerful, especially in this different use case. And I think that these portals are becoming more and more prevalent, especially the more we work at home and the more that we're not going into a government office or going into a financial institution or going into our work environments, that we can interact and engage very easily with an HR or the DMV or maybe I have a business banking account that I need to engage with that I need to get these different loans from, that have different applications, and all these things start coming together in this one interface, this one use case with this portal, and having the capability to search and have results drawn from these back office applications is really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. And and that's what I was alluding to earlier about those systems of engagement. When you're on your mobile device or you're on your website or whatever it may be, an application, the last thing you want to do, at least I want to do, is jump to another application to find out some specific information. That's the last thing I want to do. So having that unified, holistic view across your data sets is incredibly important. And then also, when you're trying to present data to your clients on their journey, they need to have that reassurance that you have what they're looking for. Right. If you don't, then they're going to walk and try to find it for something. You might have it, but they may not be able to get to it. Right. And if they can't get to it, then they're going to walk.
Or they can't find it. Which is the same result. So I totally agree.
Right. And like an example of it, again, this is just one small example of how we enhance the digital experience with Variant Logic. Variant Logic is an incredibly powerful functionality of Hawksearch that allows us to provide those results based on that relationship of results, right? So if you look at in this example, you have a red couch that's being searched for, and without Variant Logic, if you search for that, say, red couch, you may get a bunch of couches. And what if you only want a red couch, right? And so in this example, we're showing that we really identify what the customer is looking for, and we provide the specific example of what they're looking for with that client's result.
Yeah, and there's really nothing more frustrating that if you have a specific vision in your head of what you want to go accomplish, and then you've served up results that have nothing to do with your vision, that's frustrating. And that's when that experience starts breaking down. And so things as easy, but air quotes on that one, but things like Variant Logic allow you to now have that vision, describe that vision into a natural language search, and now have everything come back as what you would expect it to come back with. And now you have an easier time selecting the content, the product, the experience that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And another example, which kind of plays off of Variant Logic, but also plays off of other technologies within Hawksearch, is that parent-child relationship, right? So say if you're looking for a pair of shoes and you're looking for a pair of size 10 shoes, you will get the associated, results that go along with it. Maybe you'll get some socks, maybe you'll get some shoelaces, maybe you'll get some cleaner for those shoes, right? Everything that goes along with it. So, but the thing is it gives you that association to the product or the content that you're looking for.
And that's so important to allow people to continue on that journey, because the propensity is for these modern consumers or modern customers is that they're so goal oriented that once they've accomplished their goal, they're going to get out and on to something else. Right. Now, if you're able to continue that by delivering, hey, if you read this and you have your goal accomplished this way, here's some other things that you may want to consider that you haven't thought of yet. You know, exactly the same thing as if I have a core product that I'm looking for, shoes, size 10 shoes. Well, my goal could be accomplished by buying those size 10 shoes, but I would be remiss if I was not introduced to some of these auxiliary or ancillary products or content that I was able to engage with to have a better experience than just goal accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely, and it applies to commerce. It also applies to content, right? I mean, if you're looking for research, say you're an education institution, you're looking for research, you want associated research with that particular topic, right? You want to make sure that you're getting a holistic view of the topic that you're searching for. So all of this really plays into getting the right information at the right time to the client or to the customer. That's what they're looking for.
Absolutely. And in fact, this webinar is a good example of that, right? Because a lot of people may have come in with, oh, I want to know about search, but now I'm relating search and digital experience together. And that opens up a whole new different topic, but one that you may not have connected those dots until this type of experience.
Exactly. And and the interesting thing is the customer doesn't care.
Right.
If you forget to do something, that's on the business. That's not on the customer. So the customer just wants results.
Absolutely. And so the results that we've actually done together with our couple of different products. So why don't we take us through a couple of these?
Yeah, these are great examples. I mean, when you have Packard or State Electric or some of these fast signs, exactly. We see that Packard has grown their online growth revenue and quantity by 20% using the combination of these technologies, right? Showing the digital experience where they can take results by taking the Sitefinity CMS and taking Hawksearch search, putting it together. They've increased their business goals and they've driven results with their business goals. And and this is important because some of it, a 6.3% increase in conversions. If you relate that to what your dollar amount may be, that might be significant for your business, right? 11,000+ landing pages involving query search. That's a lot of landing pages to query through to find the relevant information. So that gives that user experience the results that they're looking for.
Absolutely. And one of the talk tracks that I go through when I'm talking about digital experience platforms and investing in digital experience is normalizing these key metrics, these KPIs that we can align to businesses as a whole. So it's not just a marketing KPI or a development KPI, it's a corporate level KPI. Yeah. And one of those is revenue. And so we've done a study, Progress did a study not too long ago with IDC and reported back that businesses who invest in digital experience have really have had the vision and want to deliver an exceptional digital experience can expect to receive 24% increase on revenue. And I look at what happened over here at Packard, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of close. I mean, that's pretty close. And so now you've got a company who embraces digital experience, embraces search experience, embraces new ways of engagement, and the result is that customers are rewarding them with their wallets.
Right, absolutely. And you can see that this is not just a commerce site or a content site. This is a holistic across multiple different industries.
This is a website thing.
It's a website thing.
A website thing, it's an experience thing, it's a business thing.
Business thing, yeah.
Especially, I mean, we look at the environment today, that's all we have is digital. Right. We don't have this physical environment anymore, and for the near future at least. And so how are we engaging with our customer differently? Because our customers' expectations have changed, have evolved even since 7 months ago. We expect their businesses to engage and interact with us differently. And search is one of those ways. And if we're not innovating constantly and reiterating and trying to make ourselves and our experiences better, then our customers know that. And unfortunately, they don't have, we don't receive a lot of data when they don't hit our engagement points. And so we miss that. And so the baseline is that you look at the growth of companies that do invest in digital experience, and if you're not growing at that, if you're not getting close to those numbers, then that's a part of the business that you probably need to start paying attention to, and how do you change that?
Yeah, and then also to add to that, if you're not doing it, your competitors are.
Totally. there's that part, yeah.
So you have to look at it across the competitive landscape as well.
All right, so we've presented a lot of stuff to you. We've talked a lot about search experience, digital experience. You've probably heard the word experience too many times. So let's boil it down into a couple of takeaways. So these are the things that Paul and I have kind of socialized on and think that if you were to take away all of this, the last 45 minutes of conversation, this is the stuff that we think you need to take back into your organizations and have a very difficult conversation to make sure that you're relaying this information and that you're making plans and strategies to incorporate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may or may not be difficult in the organization for that conversation, but the reality of it is we're here to help, right? We can help you deploy this pretty quickly, pretty easily, and looking at your environment to make sure that you're getting the right results for your business goals and business needs, right? So when we look at some of the key takeaways, right, we're looking at, search is key to digital experience. I think we kind of hit on that a number of times, talking about why search is not just an afterthought. It should be in the forefront of the decision making. It's equally as important to deciding where your content's going to live. Right? It's definitely important there. And we look at recommendations, well, as we talked about, as the evolution of search occurred, right? The evolution of search really started adding in those analyzers and those filters and the intelligence that goes into it. Recommendations is really what search is for the next generation, right? It really is the next generation. When we look at normalization and enrichment, getting the right results at the right time to the right people is critical, right? And regardless how they're looking at it, or how they're asking for it, they could be asking for it 5 different ways, and you have to produce a result that's going to be that harmonized way of delivering.
The consistent results is what matters, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that consistent result is how you're going to retain their attention, right? Size doesn't matter. We talked about this, right? Size doesn't matter to the site, right? When you look at whether you're looking at a large site or a small site, the omni-channel delivery and the results for those omni-channel delivery of that content and then the digital experience applies across large and small alike.
Yeah, the customers expect what they're going to expect. Their expectations are finite, right? It's not a variable. They know what they expect, and if you're not delivering, they don't care if you're a large business, small business, big site, little site. It doesn't matter to them. It matters on how you are delivering that experience.
Absolutely. And then finally on this slide, putting search in the marketing's hand, and it's really allowing search to be a tool that marketing can use to optimize their business results, right? To see, basically to watch what's happening, get those real-time insights, get those real-time results, watch that funnel, market to the funnel appropriately, and adjust based on persona information. That shouldn't require a heavy lift or a change order or any IT involvement. It really should mean that the marketing department can go in and hit those boost and bury things that they need to do, or whatever happens to make their business goals result. Right?
Right. It's setting your business up for success. Is really what it's doing, because we all agree that our customers are moving at light speed. They are moving so fast, and they pivot on a dime, and we have no idea where they're going to be in 2 or 3 weeks, right? Things could change that fast, and it has.
Yeah, and think of your competitive landscape. What if your competitor puts something out? You want to make that change. If you have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks before something gets implemented, you've already lost that market space.
Absolutely. So being able to modernize your tools, your content management system, your search applications, being able to modernize them and putting the power in the hands of the people that understand that market and understand the pivot and understand what direction we need to go or what product we need to highlight or what advantage we need to take into the market, giving them those kind of tools and technologies really, really pays dividends and for the advancement and the growth and taking the opportunity and a competitive advantage for your company.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So when we look at search and CMS should be under that one platform, right? And we want to think about search being in the forefront. That's really one of the key takeaways out of this slide here. So Greg, why don't you take us through the next steps here? Yeah,
so again, those are the 4 or 5 things that we want you to go do. Next steps, make it real easy. Go check out the website. Hawksearch has a great integration page of how we work together and how Sitefinity and Hawksearch really have built a phenomenal application and allow you to build delightful experiences for your customers. Go check us out. Also, we have so much content on our blogs. If you want to read deeper, and this is kind of like the search result, right? You came to learn about search experience. Now you're going to expand my horizon a little bit.
Exactly.
But we have a lot of expert content on not only from a technology standpoint, but also from an experiential standpoint of good sound marketing principles, of good sound being able to go forth with that. You'll check out our blogs. We constantly are updating them and providing content to them. And of course, check out our websites. I mean, that's really where that engagement starts. That engagement will deepen as we go forward.
Yeah, and I do want to hit on the blogs real quick. You know, all the topics that we're talking about here, each one of the topics like machine learning or a digital experience or recommendations, there's a full blog post for each one of these on our site. So, I mean, you can read about, if you want to learn about one of these topics or all of these topics, you can learn about it in depth.
Yeah, or contact us, and we'll provide our contact information toward the end. We're more than happy to have that kind of discussion with you. All right, so Paul, let's take a look at some questions, and you know, for the rest of the attendees, we have some helpful resources here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let's look at there's a number of questions here. Well, I'll just pick up the questions around the Hawksearch piece that I can answer here. So, one of the questions that came up: Can Hawksearch search is it more than just e-commerce? That's one of the questions that came up here, and you know, I think we've addressed that, you know, we can absolutely search, you know, your contextual environment. We can search through content. We have a number of case studies and use cases where we've done e-commerce as well as content-heavy sites and both large and small, as I think we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question here. I think this one's for you, Paul. Is that they talked about normalizing your data and that normalization. For those who maybe not super interested in or not in a lot of knowledge about that, can you maybe talk about that just a little bit more?
Yes, normalization of data is key, right? Because this is when we talked about the example of using a foot, right? We talked about a foot can be 1 foot or 12 inches or 12 IN or whatever it may be. And in order to normalize that gets you the results you're looking for. So if you're looking for something with a specific unit of measure, or if you're looking for a synonym, or if you're looking for filters and facets, and you want to normalize the results out of that, that's what we have a product that we just recently released, which is part of built into the platform, which is Search Information Manager. And you can see on the screen there, there's a link to it. That's one of our blog posts that we did. But that Search Information Manager solves that unit of measure issue, and it really takes care of the issue of cleansing and normalizing, but also enriching the data that's provided to the client.
Awesome.
All right, so the next one that comes up is how does recommendations work in content sites? Well, I think the recommendations piece. You know, depending on the topic that you're looking for, we can use our analyzers to provide the appropriate filters, apply those filters across the content in your data systems, across your federated sources of information, federated systems in your environment that we talked about. Use those analyzers to produce the appropriate results based on machine learning and artificial intelligence. So what happens is if you search for a topic, say you want to search for, you know, biking in the Himalayas, we would provide, you know, relevant copy that goes along with biking in the Himalayas. It could be specific on biking. It could be specific on the Himalayas. It could be both.
It could be Nepal, you know, frequent Nepal, you know, points of interest.
Exactly. So that's the machine learning and AI part of it. And those filters and facets that roll up into the analyzers allow us to drill down and provide those proper recommendations.
Perfect. All right. Well, you know what, guys? We're running just a little bit off time. We've kind of maximized our time here. We have some other questions that we will definitely reach out to you, so your questions will go answered. But feel free also to connect with Paul and myself. We see our LinkedIn and our Twitter logins there, our IDs there. Please feel free to contact us. We would love to deepen the relationship with you guys, and really we can be there for other questions that you may have as your journeys continue on with both search and your digital experience. All right, well, that wraps it up. Paul, thank you so much for this opportunity to present with you.
Great, thank you very much. This has been great. I hope the audience got a lot out of it, and I look forward to carrying on this conversation with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. All right, and to everyone in there that's still online, the attendees, thank you for watching. Bid you good day.